Hi, good evening. I thought that might pick everyone up after a horrid 72 hours for Spurs. We need a bit of cheering up. But anyway, good evening and welcome to THFC Till I Die, the station that brings you past to present. With me tonight, I have a studded panel. Beside me is my usual co-host, the Godfather, live from Lanzarote. So be careful what you say, because it could make you watch Talk Sport or Sky Sports if you're not careful. We have the Queen from Kent and the Queen from where, Mia? So I don't get it wrong. Mia, you there?
Anyway. What, Cyprus?
That's it, Cyprus. And that's, I had this right in my head at the start. Believe me, I did have it written down and everything. It's just gone tits up. Below me, he is the king of Brooklyn. He is king. He is royalty of YouTube. The second half of the deadly duo from the Irish Hotspur and Flatwork Army, Jack Kinnicky, and also beside Jack, well, he's our very own rock star. He really is like the Chuck Berry and the Chuck Berry of the YouTube world is Brad Matthews. I did honestly have this written down properly. Believe me, I did.
You wanted to make everybody blush at once, Dermot. You wanted to make everybody blush at once.
Well, I wanted to give everyone a decent intro, but I've just balls it right up. So I apologize about that. Anyway, good evening. How are we all doing? Are we all over the news for Spurs? I'll start with you, Philip. What a 72 hours for Spurs.
It hasn't been great, has it? Especially with Arsenal winning today. Now, didn't exactly relieve the burden anyway. But anyway, listen, onwards and upwards. We're game tomorrow night. We have to win this game. That's the most important thing. So, yeah. And the news has been bad. There's light at the end of the tunnel. Just how far away that is, we'll find out pretty soon.
Mia, how are you? And with all the Spurs news, how are you after past 72 hours? Are you optimistic a bit like Philip?
No, not really, because every time I think there's not going to be any more news comes out. If it's not Paratici, it's to do with CONTE, then it's the betting thing as well. Like, how many more things they want to throw at us, honestly?
The betting thing? What's the betting thing?
We will get into that, Brad. There's another thing. And Jack, what a 72 hours from hell, hasn't it? It really has, hasn't it, really?
I don't know if we've survived it yet. I feel like I'm bracing myself for the next 24 hours, to be fair, of what could go wrong. It feels like I haven't seen any calm to the storm. I haven't seen anything like sort of tell me that there's maybe some sun on the horizon or something like that. So I'm probably just preparing myself for, I don't know, maybe like something I can't even imagine. It feels like everything one could, dream up of, going wrong has gone wrong this week. So bracing myself for the next 24 hours.
Yeah, I think so. And Brad, look, is there any songs you can sing us to cheer us up? Like a goodbye song to Paratici if he has to go? Is there anything you can bring us to bring some joy back into Spurs?
Yeah, Queen at Live Aid doing We Are the Champions. That's pretty uplifting, maybe.
Yeah, we could do that. Philip could be like Roger Taylor on the drums. Jack could be like Freddie Mercury there pumping the crowd up, and Brad be Brian May, and Mia could be like John Deacon, and I could just bang the tambourine bell in the background.
Who's doing Freddie Mercury?
Jack down the below.
All right,
too kind.
John Deacon, and I want to break free. John Deacon's the only one who looked really good in the female stuff. He looked very nice in that. He looks quite feminine.
God, that's going back me. It makes me feel really old, but I do remember that video on MTV when it came out. Anyway, I want to welcome a few people. Let's get back talking about Spurs. We've got David Clark. Big up, David. He says, hi from Leicester. I'm rubbing my crystal ball, hoping for a miracle. Lol. Just one thing is for sure. Is that I'm Tottenham until I die. Big up. That's what we like to see. We've got Mr. EE. Big up, Mr. EE. He says, hi, Dermot and Coys. Big up, Mick Harmlick. He says, good evening, Dermot, Philip, and Brad, and Jack, and Mia. Good evening. And we've got Wayne Bonner. Big up, Wayne. If you want to be like Maine with his badge beside his name, please pick up a membership. They're only $2.99, $4.99. We are starting the competition at the end, at the Man City game, where there will be prizes at the end of the season. Whoever wins gets a Spurs shirt, home or away of the choice. Second gets the Spurs football. Whoever finishes bottom of the league gets a season ticket to watch Arsenal next season. He says, evening all, hope you're all well. Definitely no to Zonola, because I put a poll in the chat. Just another Lamella, money wasted on a player who will be injured most of the time. Jack, do you agree with that?
I agree with Wayne's assessment there. I kind of like Zaniolo for the fact that he kind of has a lot of the characteristics of what I would enjoy about a footballer. He's tall, he's strong, has nice hair and things like that, but he's and left-footed, but he hasn't ever really nailed down, I think, a true position, or let's say thrived in a position yet. It seems like because of those injuries, like Wayne is kind of alluding to, he's kind of had to move around in his career. He kind of started out, I think, as kind of a center mid, then kind of moved out to the right. Then he became like a striker at one stage. Then he's kind of playing behind the striker, next to the striker. He's just kind of all over the place at this stage. And he's kind of having, I wouldn't say a Dele Alli type situation, because I think it's more due to injury, but he's kind of never really, I think he's been around for a while, let's say Zaniolo, and he's never really caught on to the potential that maybe people expected yet. So I kind of don't really know if we need him right now. I'd like to go after better.
Yeah, I mean, Jack, just very quickly on that before we move on. Why are we going after? I'll start with you, question. I'll go around the panel. Why are we going after Zaniolo where we need the centre back and the right wing back? Do you know what I mean? Why are we going after an attacking midfielder when we don't really need him?
It feels like it's a very sort of tricky, sticky situation where I think Antonio Conte wants new center backs, but he's probably maybe come to or gone to Daniel Levy and Paratici and said, I would like to get rid of and upgrade these center backs. But they probably have said, you can't upgrade them all at the same time. You can't get rid of them all at the same time. They probably didn't want to be as ruthless as maybe he would like to, or maybe as he would have advised, let's say, because I think when it comes to the way that he's treated it, it feels like if he is going to call for new center backs, then he's going to probably get new center backs. But then by calling for new center backs, he's kind of basically casting out Eric Dyer, casting out Ben Davies, maybe lowering their confidence even further. And I know we kind of don't really care or have much sympathy for it, but Antonio Conte lives and dies by his results. And he is going to try to live and die by having his very useless center backs be at least as confident as possible going into each and every game. And if they know that he is happy to sell them on and happy to get rid of them, then they probably won't play for him. And it's obviously clear that the ownership won't get rid of them very, cleanly and ruthlessly as he probably would like to. So it's kind of a sticky and tricky situation. It feels like he probably can only get rid of like Sanchez or something maybe this January, but it doesn't even look like that's going to be happening at the moment, which is really frustrating, because in order, I think, to also bring in center backs, we have to get rid of center backs. I think we have 3 center backs we basically don't want anymore at this stage. We have Dyer, Sanchez, and Tanganga. So we have to get rid of definitely at least one of them.
Yeah. Well, you saying that, Jack, brings me on now. We did break on Friday about the Paratici deal. I'll put you on the top there, Jack. So if any comments, then face is not covered. Because we didn't have Philip on last night to talk about it, and of course you're on, Jack and Brad's on, Amir, I'd love to get your views on the Paratici thing. So I'll rerun it again for everyone. This was explained on Football London by Ali Gold. He says this has been rumbling on for a little while, with Juventus accused of 11 clubs of fixing their balance sheets by artificial gains by club transfers. Juventus deny any wrongdoing, as did the other clubs. They were all acquitted at first, but then the people who took them, I think it's the FIGC, then appealed that decision, and this is what we ended up with. Because Paratici ended up with a 2.5 year ban. Now, this is a bit that worries me. This is what I want to focus on. Tottenham have said absolutely nothing. Not a dicky bird. Nothing from Paratici, nothing from Spurs. And I'll start with you, Brad, and then I go to Philip, and then Mia, then you, Jack. I'll start with you, Brad. Are you surprised that Tottenham haven't said anything on this Paratici deal? And what's your feeling on it? Do you think this could be the beginning of the end for Paratici at Spurs?
Well, first, I'm not surprised, because when do Tottenham say anything about anything when you need to hear them? I think they're probably playing this is an Italian thing. It's a Juventus thing. It was employed by Juventus at the time. Is now employed by Tottenham Hotspur. It doesn't, it's not a Tottenham Hotspur thing effectively. So I think they're playing that card. Balance sheets. I know that Sean is in the chat. Hi, Sean. I would say that balance sheet sort of fixing goes on all the time with big companies. It's like me applying for a loan and they say, what assets have you got? And I say, I've got 5 guitars, they're worth 100 grand. When I know that my 5 guitars are worth probably £1,000.
Yeah.
So it's, I would say it probably goes on quite a lot. And I don't know why. I mean, obviously it's to do with the transfers. Not sure how Paratici is actually involved in the mechanics of fixing the balance sheet. Because as far as I'm aware, he's not an accountant. They want to expand. They're going to appeal. They want the ban to be UEFA and FIFA to support it as well, which means that he wouldn't be able to work in any country, as I understand it. And I'm only going what you probably saw with Valley Gold. He basically he can't work in Italy. He can work elsewhere. But they're gonna appeal against it, and then that appeal will take time. So I don't think any ban is going to be in effect for a while anyway. As for Paratici's future at Tottenham, well, really, you could argue that Levy's the guy that employed him. Levy's the guy that would have fact-checked him and done all the due diligence. So who's responsible for us having a guy who potentially can't do his job? Daniel Levy. So Daniel Levy, in any should resign himself, really. But no, it's not good. But the only upside is that I think it will take a time for this what I said, the appeal. The appeal, sorry, age. The appeal to that'll take a while to go through, I'd say. So I don't think it'll affect his dealings. But we shall see. It's interesting that he's apparently going to make a statement on the 1st of February, isn't he, Paratici? So whether that's in line with he knew what was going to happen or he potentially was going to happen, I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see that. But I don't think the club will say anything until then.
No.
So.
I think there's a lot of statements coming out the 1st of February. That you got the finances coming out the 1st of February. Paratici is going to make an understatement the 1st of February. Maybe Conte and Levy might want as well. Maybe might as well do it as a whole new press conference, all 4 of them making their own press conference.
I've got a theory on that, which I'm going to talk about later if we go on to it.
Yeah, we'll probably end up getting onto that as well, Brad. Philip, it says here, Football London understands that Paratici appeared to be working as normal in his role on Saturday morning. I was in contact with agents of Spurs, tackled the final 10 days of a transfer window that probably to them, Ollie's just opened today. At the moment, his ban is only affecting Italy, and whether the appeal process ends up suspending that during the course of that process is another thing. Now, Paratici delegates much of his non-transfer work, Philip, to people below him at Tottenham, which he's now structurally created in the past 12 months when he joined. Now, what I want to get on to you, Philip, is this ruling. Now, there's a rule in the Premier League books that says that anyone that's got a director can be disqualified if they don't meet certain standards. Now, I said to you at the backstage, is there a loophole, do you think, that Tottenham could change his job title so he doesn't get disqualified as a director? That they could change his job title and they could find a way around it?
I'm going to take the moral high ground here. And I think we have to get rid of him.
Yeah.
And that's not because we really want to get rid of him, but mud sticks. And if he goes to appeal, and okay, the ban could be made worldwide by UEFA or FIFA or whatever, and then you'd have to go. Changing the title is going to mean that we're going to be open for criticism. And Daniel Levy is going to be open for criticism for not doing due diligence, as Brad said, on this guy before he brought him in. Like he's a year and a half with us. He knew this thing's been going on since before that. So Levy knew there was something in the pipeline. So, maybe he was so desperate to get him in, he just took him and said, hopefully they'll go away. But I think the mud is going to stick with the club if we stick with him. And that's not that I want him to go, but I think morally we have to make a stand here and show that we're doing the right thing. And let's face it, okay, he might have done work behind the scenes and rearranging the scouting and all that. But I'd like to know what he's doing the last 3 weeks, because I'd say his mind can't have been on the transfers. It has to be on this case.
Yeah.
It's only human, he's only human. And if he's about to be indicted by a court for something he did a few years ago, that's going to be preying on his mind the whole time. So he can't give the job the attention that it deserves. So, yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens. The club's silence is possibly they're taking legal advice on it, I would imagine.
I actually
on Friday.
I actually know where Paratici is. He's actually in the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Woolwich, because I've got a friend there, and he's okay. And me and my mate went to see him yesterday in the hospital. We was in there for 3 hours, and I'm not joking. The person in the place next to us, the curtain was closed, but the person in the bed next to us was on his phone for the whole 3 hours. So I think that's where Paratici is. He's in the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Woolwich on his phone.
Well, there you go. A bit of breaking news there by Brad there that he's in hospital. Do you know what? I wouldn't actually be surprised if it was the amount of pressure he's actually been under, Brad, to be fair. But there you go. Breaking news. Mia and Jack, this is jointly for you. So I let Mia go first and you, Jack. This rule. Now, Mia, how do you feel on the Paratici thing? Should he stay? Should he go? Just a continuation of last night's show. And the question to you, Jack, do these rules need to be updated so a situation like this can never happen again? So I put the first question to you, Mia, and then that second part I put to you, Jack.
My thoughts are he shouldn't stay, because I agree that mud does stick, and I do think that it's not going to look very good on Tottenham, even though other clubs have done many a scammy, weird thing and got away with it, and it hasn't seemed to reflected bad on them. For some reason, when it's Tottenham, the mud seems to stick that little bit more. So I wouldn't want it to be sticking on us. And as much as I do quite like him, I think he's I quite like Paratici, but I think he should go. But then it's going to leave us who we're going to get next, where we're going to go, because he has changed things structurally in the background as well, which has been obviously could have been a positive thing. We don't know how much it's affected stuff, but the fact that he has tried to change things as well has been something different. So it would be really disappointing to see him go, but I just don't think he can stay, can he really?
No. And Jack, I mean, look, this is not the first time we've had this in the Premier League. We had the shenanigans over the Newcastle takeover. We've had everything in the Premier League. There's rules have to be tightened up here that even if somebody's been brought on, but even if there's any smell of what they've done where they've worked before, that they shouldn't be allowed to take up a job within the Premier League until that is sorted out.
The Premier League, let's say, does not keep a very tight ship, so I'm not going to really keep my hopes up that they're going to, tighten up their rules or anything like that. They pretty much let anything and everything come into the Premier League as long as it's got a little bit of money behind it. Another thing as well is I think when it comes to Paratici, if anybody's going to probably find some sort of, cooked up, sleazy loophole, it's probably going to be him, I think as well. So I'm not surprised that maybe this sort of rule has been found, or if anything, it's wouldn't surprise me that Paratici has found it. Mark New, I think, even said that on the fan show with me on Friday, that, if you believe in the Don, then that believes he's going to find some way out of this at the end of the day, which I think in all, sense of humor, you kind of do sort of, in a humorous kind of way, sort of believe it. Like Paratici might find loophole in all of this, and maybe Daniel Levy as well might find some loophole to try to keep him around. But I agree with the rest of the panel. I think inevitably he just has to go. I think it's a bad mark on the club. I think actually at the end of the day, he's done better than the previous director of football did. So it's not like, the crimes he's done at a previous club, he didn't exactly do at Spurs. So I sort of kind of look at it maybe with two minds, where it's like, yeah, maybe Paratici, cooked the books for sure, but he cooked the books elsewhere. It didn't really look like he cooked the books too much at Spurs, and did better than his predecessor, and also was sort of on the looks of things kind of setting us up for the future. He brought in a huge scouting department, brought in Gredar Steinson, brought in all those other guys, kind of in the background, and also I think beefed up a lot of the sort of kind of things that Steve Hitchen was basically ignoring, it felt like, for the most part, which was sort of various kind of scouting and recruitment departments, and kind of updating kind of the modernness of it. It felt like it also was reported that it was a little bit behind the times, the way that Spurs actually kind of recruited and looked at players. I think he revamped kind of the methods and things like that people do to sort of scout players. Yeah. So on the most part, I don't really think he was doing a whole lot wrong at Spurs, but you sort of have to look at it with two different minds, where, he was doing some pretty sleazy things over at Juventus, and he definitely probably needs to be fired for maybe having that reputation now, because we can't have, that sort of reputation or be associated with it. But at the end of the day, I can't really get too mad at Paratici, apart from probably screwing over our January transfer window. I think he's probably screwed it over in kind of a major way. But before that, if I were to ignore that, I don't really think he's done a whole lot wrong, especially if I were to compare it to his predecessors of Paul Mitchell and Steve Hitchen. In fact, I think he did better than them.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, he's done better than Steve Hitchen in every shape and form. Steve Hitchen was useless. But at least Paratici has tried to do it right. But look, this story will run and run and run. And we'll always bring you the latest here on THFC till we die. Right, tomorrow, guys, we're away to Fulham. So I'll give you some information. The game is live on Sky Sports Premier League, Sky Sports Main Event, and Sky Sports Sports Ultra, with coverage of Monday Night Football starting at 7. If you're in America, where Jack is, you can watch it Eastern Time at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, channel USA, Network Online, NBC Sports. Is that right, Jack?
Should be, yeah. I would say recommend the NBC Sports over the Peacock, because the Peacock had a bit of a howler during the North London Derby, I suppose.
Right. Okay, so that's where you can find it. Fulham, after winning promotion back to the Premier League last spring, Fulham, 31 points, have already topped their points tally of 2 seasons ago of 28 in just 20 of the 38 games. And Tottenham, 33 points, 5th place. Meanwhile, trying to end their losing skid of 2 games, keep within touching distance of 4th place Manchester United on 39 points. Now, we asked everyone for their starting 11. Jack, I'll let you go first, and then I'll do Brad's, and then I'll do our one. So, Jack, who would be your starting 11 for tomorrow?
Forster has to start. I think Conte kind of, like, you start with Lloris with the last one, with the mistakes that was made, but you have to still criticize, I think, Conte for deciding to stick with Lloris after he already had made errors previously. So Forster, I think, has to start. I don't think Emerson played all that bad, but maybe with the Cottage being a very sort of tight and very kind of cramped maybe atmosphere, you probably want more technical players. So I'd put Doherty in there. And then I'd go Romero. I'd keep Dyer out of this just because I think he was actually the worst out of the 3, despite actually Longlay's big error. I do think he was the worst. So I'd go Romero, Longley, Davies. Perisic was torched defensively, but he's still better than Sessegnon at the end of the day. So I'd keep Perisic, Højbjerg, Bentancur, Kulusevski, Kane, and then I think Sonny also has to start in order for Conte to kind of save his job. He probably has to maybe think about benching Sonny. So I'd go Richarlison.
And what formation would you play?
I think I'd stick with the 3-4-3 for now.
3-4-3. Okay. Well, this is Brad's. Brad, do you want to walk through your starting 11?
Yeah, I've just gone for a total. I think you left a player out. Where are we?
Have I?
Kulusevski, yeah.
Kulu, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I've gone for a very a bit of a radical thing. I'm going for 10 players. No.
Yeah, sorry, but might as well try something different.
No, I thought let's go for something different. I don't think in any 1 minute this will be Conte's team, but yeah, I think Lloris needs to be rested. I'm not going to say dropped, rested. I think Son needs to be rested, and I think that we tend to generally get, unless Højbjerg and Bentancur play brilliantly, we tend to get overrun in the midfield. So I would rather have played a 3 in the midfield. So we'll have the 3 at the back. I've gone for Davis over Longley. I agree with what Jack said about Longley and Dyer, but I think Dyer's more experienced there.
Sure.
And Romero obviously walks into the team. The only one to come out of the Man City game in our defence. I think that... I personally would play Spence at right back, but that's not going to happen. So Doherty at right back, again, I think he's more attacking than Emerson. Obviously, against Man City, you've got to defend a bit more. And I was toying between Sessegnon and Perisic. So I was sort of humming and ahhing. The reason I went for Sessegnon is that I would have preferred Perisic, but Perisic played the other day, and I think we need to be thinking about, which I think is our most important game of the season so far, Preston away in the FA Cup. So I would play Sessegnon there. And also, it's playing against his former team, so maybe that might inspire him. And yeah, I would seriously have Højbjerg and Bentancur as the sort of holding midfielders, and I would play. You could either play Kane and Kulusevski and then Richarlison at the top, or you could play Richarlison and Kane at the top and have in behind him. But the idea being is that I think Kulusevski is it's an excellent player, but if he's on the right, he can only really go one way where it's effective, and that's left. And I think if you play him as a number 10 in between, he's got options of going anywhere then. I think that might, and he's also a very good shot. So if he's more central, he can get those shots in. So, and it's just, as I say, it's just trying something different. And I think, as I said, Sonny needs to be rested. It's just not working for him this season. I don't think he's become a bad player overnight, but it's just not working. And we saw how good he was when he came on against Leicester as a sub. Yeah. So maybe that might work. So that's my thinking behind that. That 11.
Well, I've had a little bit of breaking news to come up on my computer. There's reports tonight that details emerged the Spurs set for key meeting with Roma tomorrow over Zanola. So that deal could actually make a major step forward over the next 24 hours. So look, keep your fingers crossed. And if that deal does break tomorrow and he does become a Spurs player, we'll come on straight away, me, Philip, and Mia already, and we'll give you the very latest on that deal. Philip, you're now starting 11, then I go to Mia's. What have you've gone for a 5-2-3? Why have you picked this team?
Just try to give the team, but just to comment on that Zaniolo thing, I think it's a smokescreen. Roma have said they only want to sell. We've only offered a loan with an obligation to buy. So I think it's just another smokescreen, another diversionary tactic. Plus the fact the guy's done both his ACLs, so it's like Eric Lamela on speed dive.
Our medical department would love him.
Yeah, they would. Just give him something to do for a while. Anyway. Company. Yeah. Anyway, back at the ranch, I've kept faith with Lloris. I don't know why. I just have. I don't know. Maybe it's misguided loyalty. I kept Royale playing. I think Royale played well against City. In all fairness to him, he played well. Romero picks himself. Eric Dyer is there because of nobody else. Longley, I'll give him another chance. He was badly exposed for that City goal on Thursday, but it wasn't all his fault. Paratici tossed up between himself and Sessegnon, but I think Parisic's crossing ability will probably get the nod for me. Usual suspects in midfield, and I would put Kulu to play slightly behind the two boys, Richarlison and Kane, or even Kane to play slightly behind, just to allow let Richarlison go down the middle when he's good at playing where he's good at, through the centre, and maybe drop Harry Kane back to do more like a number 10 role. But Fulham are going to be no pushovers. I mean, they've done very well this season, and they're playing a nice brand of football, and they've also got Mitrovic up front who can give any defence a bit of a torrid time. So I'm praying for 3 points tomorrow, but I'm not convinced we'll get them.
Yeah, well, Derek Hutchinson says, crap back 3, Philip. That's what he said. There's a few remarks, a few people here.
Don't blame me, blame the players.
Any combination.
Yeah. Well, that's Philip.
If I put what do you call him? If I put Ben Davies in, they get the same. If I put Sanchez in, they get the same. So any 3 from those 5 are going to get the same comments. So I can't win.
This is Mia's starting lineup. Mia, do you want to go through your starting 11?
Yep, I picked Forster because I don't think that Lloris should be playing at the moment. He makes way too many mistakes and costs us too many goals. Romero obviously gets in because he's cutie. Dyer, I feel like that we haven't really got many other choices with Dyer. It seems like you just said, it's the best of a bad bunch. Not the best, but someone out of a bad bunch, basically. Longley, I think, although I don't know, I think he's slightly better with the ball technically. So I do think he's probably over anyone else. Doherty, because Doherty's better going forward. Emerson's better at defending. And I think that with Fulham, we're going to need somebody going forward. So him and Perisic, I think, are probably better at pushing forward to get us up the pitch. I chose Sarr and Bentancur because no one else has actually chose this combination, because I think this combination is interesting and we haven't seen it yet. So I feel like that could actually be a good combination. And I agree with Philip. I think I would probably have Kane can move further back and have Richie come forward, or they can just interchange. Kane and Richie can interchange, and Kulu obviously on the side, because I don't want Son playing. I think Son needs to be also rested. I think he's just not again been good enough. So players that haven't been good enough that we can drop need to be dropped, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Mia. This is Ellie's team. Bless her. She's working the chat tonight. So thank you, Ellie, for doing that for us. Queen Ellie's starting lineup is Foster and goal. Emerson, Romero, Dorian Davis are back 4. Then she's gone for Højbjerg as a holding midfielder, Basuma and Bentancur in the middle, and then Kulu, Kane, and Hill up the 3. So that's Ellie's. And then for me, I've gone a little bit different. I've gone for Foster and goal. I've gone for Romero, Dyer, Longley, the back 3. Doherty and Perisic as the wing backs. I've put Højbjerg in as a holding midfielder with Sarr and Bentancur in the midfield. And I've actually gone for Kane playing in that 10 role and put Richie up front. Because I think with Kane's passing ability, I've never seen passing like Harry Kane since Glenn Hoddle. And that's given his compliment for how good of a passer Kane is. So that's my lineup. We've gone for there's some interesting different lineups there. We've got a few actually in the chat as well, so I'll get them as well. We have Chris here. Big up Chris. He's gone for Foster, Romero, Dyer, Doherty, Longley, Perisic, Bentancur, Højbjerg, Kulu, Richarlison, and Kane. We've got Vince Wenger 171074. He's gone for Foster, Doherty, Sanchez, Dyer, Romero, Perisic, Højbjerg, Bentancur, Kulu, Kane, Richarlison. He's gone for a 3-4-3. And also Philip, he says, thanks for the information on Zozola as well. Sorry, pardon me. So big up, sir. And also we've got Filio 123 calls. Big up, Filio. He's gone for 3-4-1-2. He's gone for Foster in goal. Doherty, Romero, Dyer, Longley, Perisic, Basuma, Bentancur, Kulu as a 10, and Richie and Kane up front. Guys, I'll start with you, Philip, then you, Jack. Philip, do you think a lot of... You're the only one, basically, that's picked Lloris. So why have you picked Lloris ahead of Foster? With all the mistakes Lloris has made, what was behind you thinking of picking Lloris in your starting lineup?
One, because Fraser Foster has only played one match recently, right? And he's not match sharp. He might be match fit. He's not match sharp. And Lloris, if he's a professional at all, if there's any pride in his performance, those last 2 games against Villa and City will be hurt, or Arsenal will be hurting him. Plus the goal against City as well at the near post. So I'm giving him the nod purely that he will bounce back. Like he is. You don't become a bad goalkeeper overnight. But it's just his form has dropped, and I want to get his form back. And hopefully he will tomorrow night. Hopefully he doesn't have much to do tomorrow night, but I have a feeling he might. But that's the only reason, really. I mean, I've nothing against Fraser Foster at all. But I'm just giving the man in possession the nod.
I love Moondog's Aussie idealist sort of style of formation. Lloris in goal, no Foster in goal, and then 10 up front. That's it.
Attack is the best form of defence.
God, I miss the Aussie day, don't we, guys? I miss Aussie. Its whole idea was he had a team meeting once. This is a true story, guys. He had a team meeting with Sharon and all the guys before the game. And his words were, give the ball to Teddy and then everyone attack. And Teddy was sort of looking around thinking, well, who's going to do defending? Oh, we'll be fine. We score more goals than them. That was sort of Aussie idealist management style. It was great while it lasted. It didn't work very well, but it was great while it lasted, I must admit. And then Steve D's gone for, I think this must be...
I think that might be a bit hard to arrange that one there.
The recent goal, Walker on we've got...
That'll keep Paratici busy.
Rose, Basuma, Sarr, Benny, Kulu, Kane and Richie.
Or Forster in there, Steve D, and you're good.
Oh, that's just it's so sad when you see the first 11 that we had under Paratici when we were going for titles. It's just so sad.
It really is. Right, guys, we're going to get into
it. Many of
it.
them are still there.
Yeah, that's true. Right, we're going to get into it now. And we are going to put... Right, this is the first question to you guys. And I'll start with you, Jack. I'll go to you, then Philip, and then Mia, then you, Brad. Would it be helpful if all the so-called ITKs would check their sources before coming out with the BS we've been subjected to recently. Now, we had it this morning, Jack, on Twitter. Somebody put up Conte's leaving. He's leaving at the end of the season. And then there was a tweet, I think an hour later, saying, I didn't mean to say that. I meant to say something else. What's your view on all these people coming out on Twitter or on Facebook or on social media, Jack, with all these, I have a source? What's your view in it all?
I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion on like clickbait journalism or like anything like that. Like, I think it just comes with the territory. Like, we all know who sort of, runs these various media enterprises, from Murdoch to whoever, they'll do whatever it takes to, get a click or, get somebody to click on the link, click on the page. And that's what it sort of takes. And you have to sort of filter out and kind of develop your own sort of, I think, profile, or let's say taste category of who you kind of trust and who you don't trust. And I think that's kind of up to maybe more the viewer than it is actually us sort of criticizing maybe the various ITKs or the various journalists of the world, because you either take all of them seriously or you take none of them seriously, or you kind of learn to figure out which ones maybe have more truthful things to say and which ones have less truthful things to say. I think it's kind of, 3 different avenues to go about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Dermot, I hate to give you kind of a plain answer, but that's how I sort of see it. I think that's even what makes Matty Hayes so brilliant, is that, right, he does such a good job at figuring out what sources that have reported on Spurs in the past and have been accurate and which ones haven't been accurate. And he kind of does a bit of, how would you put it, a BS meter on a lot of it. And I think that's a great way to do things. And I think that's how it should be handled. And I think how it's always going to be is there's certain sources that you trust, certain sources you don't. And then there are ones that are, maybe in the gray area, and you try to figure out if there's any truth behind it. And that's maybe the fun in it all. Maybe there's a mystery in it.
Maybe. David Clark, please be careful what you put in the chat. Ellie put what she put in the chat because she believes in it. She, do not please say that. Show her some respect, and show people in respect what they put in, what you put in the chat, please. Be very, very careful. Philip, these I don't knows. What do you say? I know you're big against them, like TalkSport and Sky Sports. I know you don't like. You like someone to come out with it and it being spot on. What do you say about it?
Well, I'll give an example today. Now, I was looking through Twitter, and within about 5 posts of each other, there was one post said Antonio Conte is going to leave Tottenham at the end of the season, and the club haven't even discussed a new contract with him. 5 posts down, somebody else puts in Antonio Conte is leaving Tottenham at the end of the season, despite Tottenham offering him a new contract. Now, you can't get more polar opposites than that. Okay, the only common denominator is he's leaving at the end of the season. But that sort of stuff, it annoys me. It really does. That's why you said I don't know. That's maybe a better name than I do know. I don't know would be a better name for them, So, I believe it when I see the player holding up the shirt at the training ground. And I'll believe it when I see the chairman shaking hands with a new manager, whoever that will be. But one thing that does bother, and I'm probably jumping the gun here, I'm sure we're going to discuss it later on. If Conte does leave, should he leave now or should he wait till July?
Yeah.
What is the best decision for the club? We'll leave that one for later, but I think we need to discuss that.
Yeah, that is a question for later. And also got another question. The next question is about yesterday. And Brad, what's your thoughts on these in the know sort of people?
IDKs.
Like Philip said, I take it a pinch of salt, really. There are a couple of reputable ones on there. I mean, we all know Ali Gold. He works for Football.London as the Tottenham correspondent. He has access to the club. He talks to people. If you ever seen him being interviewed, he says he always tries to get at least 2 sources before he says something. So there's a possibility that what he says is probably quite correct. Sometimes it gets lost in the translation as well. I think the DiMarzio, Gianluca DiMarzio guy. It came. Oh no, he didn't mean to say that. It wasn't. Got lost in translation. Blah blah blah. So I tend to and also a lot of them they'll just basically tweet what someone else has said. Yeah, and sometimes that is incorrect as well. I mean, you know, we all watch a lot of Ali Gold, and let's face it, his YouTube thing goes on for about 5 days anyway. So he says a lot, and he's always sort of saying that people are constantly misquoting him by taking a little bit of what he said, putting it out of context, and, you know, making it into a clickbait. So you get a lot of that happening. So it's I tend to not take any of it seriously, and unless it's for obviously we know for Fabrizio Rabbit in Italy, that guy, he's probably good for European football, but yeah, it's just one of those things. It's modern day. It's the modern day. It used to be the man down the pub, didn't it? You know,
that's true. I remember them days.
Twitter is the man down the pub.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Look, I miss like Matty Hayes being on YouTube, because I used to love his shows on the transfer window, because he was always got accurate information. And people like, you know, Matty Hayes, who does a good job, and Ali Gold, who makes sure he gets his sources right. Is there too many people now on Twitter or on social media thinking they know people, that they got told something, they think, oh, that's accurate? Do you think there's too many of them, and should we just stick to the people we know who are reliable and who we know the information comes across is 100%?
Yeah, there's so many people who just retweet aimlessly, don't they? They don't bother to check where it's come from. They're just like, click it. Oh yeah, I'll just give that a little retweet, because they all want traction. They all want to be part of it. So they all want to get the likes and the clicks and stuff. And that's why people do it. And it is irresponsible in a way. I think there needs to be a bit more responsibility for the bigger journalists in the industry. I think they've got the biggest responsibility, because if they tweet it out, they know that thousands and thousands of people are going to see it. Someone who's smaller, who's going to really see it? So I think it's a bit irresponsible, to be honest with you, to have that, just to kind of go, oh, oops, it was lost in translation. Oops, like, you know, just be a bit more responsible when you're tweeting, especially when you know that you've got thousands of followers. I think that's what it is. But yeah, you've got to trust them. You've got to trust your gut with who you know is a responsible journalist who's going to check their sources. Everyone else, they get in the bin. I don't trust none of them. I'm like, there's a very few people that I actually trust when it comes to those sources, because of that reason.
Yeah, and I've actually got the quote. I brought the quote down this morning, actually, from a journalist who actually was picking up him. He says, I've spoken to Gianluca this morning. He asked me to clarify. Spurs have proposed talking to him about a new contract, but Conte doesn't want to talk about it while he's concentrating on the season. So it's really conflicting at the moment where Conte goes. There's a lot of news going. We could wake up in the space of an hour. Conte's resigned. Conte's signing a new contract. Conte's walking out. Pochettino's coming in. So there's different people with different, I don't know if it's for clickbait, if it's for followers. Can we just stick to one source? And that's the likes of Matty Hayes, Ali Gold, people you can trust, that give you responsible, up to date, and you know it's news you can trust. So just be careful what you read out there, because a lot of it isn't right.
I think
one thing about Ali Gold,
I think it's up to the reader, Dermot. Like, it's up to you. Like, you can't expect, you know, the whole, you know, all of a sudden, like, it all just to be filtered down to, you know, one sort of source, and then all of a sudden we're being fed, you know, propaganda at that stage, you know, because then it's only by one or two sources. I think it's up to the reader, like it is with politics and the same, like, a variety of things in the world. Yeah. Sorry, Mia.
Go on, Mia.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Jack. It's the same as any subject. You should always look into other things and not just be closed-minded onto like certain things. You should always try and look further afield to try and get your answers, because you'll get your answers by putting in the information together and thinking, right, okay, this sounds about right. You know, like, you have to be careful with everything you look at, you read, and you've got to be responsible and know that you can't believe everything you read. So you have to go further and dig deeper. That's the only way you'll know.
One thing about Ali Gold, one thing I'll say about Ali Gold, I mean, I think he's one of the better ones, but bear this in mind, he works for Football London. He probably has access to the club. The club could also use him very much as a propaganda machine to pass what they want to be heard out there. That could easily happen too. So, you know.
Yeah, I had a conversation on Twitter with someone that said, "Oh, he's employed by the club, blah 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 blah." He's obviously, his job is a football journalist. He's a Tottenham supporter from youth and that sort of thing. So he has access to the club. So he's got to be very careful in what he says because he doesn't want to lose that access. So if he comes up with something that's not true or the club don't want him to say, he doesn't want to, this is his livelihood. So we've got to be very careful before we start sort of, like this person did, accusing him, he's employed by the club.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, basically,
At the same time, he can't call
is,
them. Yeah. Sorry, Philip. Keep going.
No, I was saying the moral of the story is, as me and everybody said, just be very careful what you're listening to, and don't believe, because if somebody with 5 million followers tweets something, 2 million of those are going to retweet it, and that's going to put the story even further into people's minds. So it's not easy. Again, wait till the kissing the badge.
Jack, what did you want to add to that?
Oh, in the case of Ali Gold, I think with his connections too, I think it's like he can't come out and also, even though he is a Spurs fan like the rest of us, he can't scream moonhead or moon boots or things like that either, because he has connections to Eric Dyer's agent. He's done interviews with Eric Dyer. He knows the players. He knows Conte. They know who he is. There's a bit of formality as well as professionalism behind it, as much as we like to talk the big bad talk at times. We don't have to face these players and these managers and the club on a daily basis. And I think when also that's where I think it gets twisted, is that if you have to interact with these people on a daily basis, there's no way that you can slander them behind their back. It's just not how it works, I guess. It's then you ruin your connections with that team or with those players or whatever it is. It's a fine balance, I think, for him. And
it is.
He guides it well by the looks of things.
Yeah, he does.
Can you imagine if Ali Gold turned around and called them micro penises? That would be really funny. Right? At least I'd make
exactly
it.
For right
I know
wing
I'd
back,
make it. Ali Gold knows what I'm chatting about.
I don't want to, well, I do want to plug his show actually, but his latest one he did, I think he released it yesterday. It's an hour and 20 minutes. I think it's probably his longest one. It's actually worth watching because you do get to see. You can sort of tell he is a proper Spurs fan, and he is getting a little bit stressed out with what's happening at the club. And he does actually go on to interactions on Twitter and what he does and what happens. So it's actually quite an interesting watch.
Yeah, I watched it today actually. It is an interesting watch. But yesterday, guys, we had the protests outside the training ground, and the question that was come up in this is: will yesterday's protest at the training ground and the coverage Sky gave it have any effect on Levy or Enoch, or will they regard it as a majority of fans looking for ownership change? Now, I'll start. I start with you, Philip, on this, and then I'll go around to Brad, and then you, Jack, and then Mia. What do you think, Philip? I mean, do you think the board will now take notice that look, there's unrest in the fan base, we have to do something, or do you think they'll just ignore it?
Well, I mean, his history will tell you they'll probably just ignore it. But I don't know what the numbers were like yesterday. I didn't see Sky yesterday, so I don't know. Were the numbers, were they small or were they large, or what way?
I think about 50 or 60.
Yeah.
50 or 60.
Okay. Well, I mean that to me isn't large enough to make Daniel Levy worry about his position. He'll just take it. That's only a few fans that have gone out on the limb to protest against the club. What needs to happen is do what the Everton fans did. Nearly blockade the players in after the match last weekend, or do something. Do what the Manchester City fans do when they score a goal. Turn their back on things, only for a different reason. 50 or 60 fans, well-meaning as they are, and we all know what they're trying to do. But I don't think it's going to make Daniel Levy lose any sleep now, to be honest with you.
No, Brad.
Well, I think it's going to take a lot of things. And the protest yesterday is just one small part of what it's going to take. I say big up to everyone that went along there because they're doing what they believe in. Now, whether you think it works or doesn't work, they're doing what they believe in. They're very passionate about it. I obviously know Brian Daigle personally. He's a good friend of mine. And he's doing it because he's passionate about it. He's actually released a thing today on his Tottenham on Tour channel, a little 20-minute video of the protest yesterday, and he said the main reason for the protest yesterday was to get some sort of recognition, and he had BBC and Sky down there interviewing him and that. Now, to date, and he says it on this video, I don't think Sky have actually, or the BBC have actually put the interview on their channels yet, but they did do it. So whether they went on, I don't know. But it's just a small part of a general big thing, and I think the hope is that eventually, the more and more we get into this malaise at Tottenham, you'll have a tipping point, and then you'll get the crowd. So if the crowd, when you protest a foot, so I can't get, I had to go to the hospital yesterday. I said, I can't get down. It's very difficult for me to get down to the training ground, but I go regularly to the matches. So I'll do my part in that. If the crowd start chanting, "We want Levy out, Enoch, whatever," as long as it's not abusive, then I'll join in from my little seat in the West End. And if little pockets of people around the ground, like you have people on the shelf singing, if they all start doing it, even if it's so small, it will have some sort of effect. And I think that's what's going to have to happen. Whether it will work in the future, whether it will have an effect on what they do, if they change, I don't know. But we do know that it had an effect the last time. I was at the Man United game where they started singing "Levy out," and Nuno was sat that night, and we appointed Conte. Now, whether you can put it down to just that chant, no, of course you can't. It's a generation of things, but it certainly had an effect. So yeah. And what annoys me about Twitter is the people that argue about it. It's like you might, whether you agree with Levy out or Levy in, or whether you agree that the protests will make a difference. A lot of people on Twitter are just ridiculing them, and that's just not right. It's not right.
No.
And they're arguing about, there was 50 people, there was 60, and it's just, what's the point of those arguments?
It's your right to protest. It's your right. It's
exactly,
all like
exactly.
At the end of the day, it doesn't mean that I don't agree with everything they say, but I don't. I respect and I respect their opinion, and I respect them wanting to protest and them. Jack, you look at the Manchester United fans, how it's taken them God knows how many years to get the Glazers out, and that looks like it's coming through. But they seem to protest en masse. If you look at the Man United process, set up a protest club as well against the Glazers. Do you feel that our fan base isn't behind what's happening, or do you feel that it will grow in time, but it just needs to start growing, if you know what I mean?
I think it is growing. I think it's more that it just doesn't, these sort of things don't seem to happen overnight. I don't think people sort of make their decision even on Daniel Levy overnight. I think probably the one thing where maybe it happened overnight was probably the lack of investment after the Champions League final appearance. I think that's probably was maybe a bit of the overnight sort of moment for people, but it just sort of feels like it's going to take more Januaries where they continue to do the same thing, where they continue to repeat the same bad habits or the same old habits, and Spurs fans start to notice that this club just continues to operate in the same way, regardless of how desperate the fans feel that they need to make changes. If they continue to operate in the same ignorant way, I think more people will start to get behind Levy and Enoch out. I think a lot of people probably find themselves very much in the middle. I think, of course, there are plenty that find themselves like Daigle and the rest who are very strong and very passionate about it. And a lot of people find themselves in that camp. A lot of people find themselves in the middle. I don't know too many that find themselves actually on the actual Enoch and Levy inside. I think that's a bit of a made up sort of, kind of group, but I think it's a lot of people find themselves actually a bit more in the middle about it, where they probably would like to see Enoch and Levy go. But the more that Enoch and Levy keep repeating themselves and keep making the same mistakes and keep kind of torturing us, especially the way that this January has gone as a good example of kind of all the bad habits and all these sort of old things that we had to go through, more people will find themselves on the stronger side of things, on the more deeply, evil Enoch and Levy out. So Dermot, I think last January, for the most part, seemed successful. A lot of people got attention to it and got attention to the message, despite them signing players and despite them signing two brilliant players that got us in the top four. They were very successful in that. I think the message of leaving ENIC out seemed to definitely ring around the Spurs fan base last January. It's ringing around it this January. So I think all in all, they should see that as a success. They shouldn't see that as a failure. They should see that as a success.
Can I,
It's the attention that it's drawn.
Yeah.
It's actually quite interesting. There was I can't find it now. There was a channel I just came up on my YouTube, and it was I can't remember what the channel was. HI something or other. And the very first thing was, why do Spurs fans dislike Daniel Levy? And it's about 30 minutes long. And the guy who does this is a Crystal Palace supporter. And what he basically did was he basically put out a message to Spurs fans: why do you want to see Daniel Levy out? Message me. And so he's got all these people messaging him with their reasons, blah 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 blah. And he's put together a really good half-hour program about why they want Levy out. And this is from a Palace fan. And he sort of says, from an outsider's point of view, hang on a minute, Tottenham Hotspur, a great stadium, in the Champions League a lot, or Europe all the time, blah, 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 blah. Why is everyone annoyed? Because he's a Palace fan, and Palace fan doesn't do that all the time. But by the end of the show, he's actually built up a really good sort of, reasoning why we dislike Daniel Levy and the owners. It's really worth a watch, because you're looking at it from an outsider's point of view, And and then he more or less comes round to our way of thinking, or the people that think ENIC should, and basically round to, I think that ENIC has taken us as far as they can. They've taken us to competing in the Champions League, but we want more. We want more. We deserve more.
Yeah,
we can get more.
Yeah, and Mia, where do you stand in all of this now? Where's your opinion on on all of this opinion?
I've got a couple of points. Is that with Man United, some of their protests were unacceptable because they actually threatened the Glazers physically. They did some really not good or cool things. I agree with protests as long as they are kept peaceful and no threats are made against anybody's lives, because I just don't believe that that's how we should behave as civilized human beings. So I'm happy for them to protest, because I think, good, you're right, they should, of course, if that's what they believe in and you've got the right to protest, 100%, I'm behind people who want to do that. But I don't agree with any of the vile stuff, and there has been some vile stuff bandied about Levy, and I disagree with it. I know that's not going to be a popular opinion maybe, but I don't agree with people being vile to him, because he's somebody's son, he's somebody's dad, he's somebody's husband. We shouldn't be like that against somebody as a person. You can go against what he does as the club, but don't be horrible to him as a person. That's all I would say. Is the personal attacks on people is not acceptable.
Yeah, those protests.
I just don't think it is.
Yeah.
But with the protests, as far as
I can say, yes, those protests was organised by two.
As far as I know, obviously it was.
And they basically.
One thing about
I understand that, but I'm not saying it was.
One thing about Brian Daigle's interview,
of course.
I'd say there's two reasons.
Yeah, hang on. We seem to be over talking. What you're saying, Philip? I'll let you finish, and then Mia, then finish off because you're over talking each other.
Yeah, just one quick point about Brian Daigle's interview there. I would say the reason that hasn't been broadcast is either Sky are checking it to make sure there was nothing said that could be used by Levy in retaliation against it, or maybe the Spurs PR team knew what was coming, got on to Sky, so check that carefully before you put it out. Because things can be said in the heat of the moment that might not be suitable for broadcast and might have a legal implication later on for everybody involved. So I'll say that's more or less why it wasn't done. Well-meaning as Brian is, I'm sure, when you get in the heat of the moment with a TV camera in front of you, you might just say something a little bit more than you intended to.
He actually, in the 20-minute video that he's put out today, he actually more or less says what he said in the interview. So, and it's really...
And Mia, what were you trying to say? Sorry,
I was going to say, the protest, obviously, it's a small thing at the moment, but it has that potential to grow, and the more people who feel disillusioned by the whole thing will obviously join in, and that's when it will probably be more effective, because obviously the small amount of people, not small, but it's not like a really large amount of people, but I think they're organising some other things as well, possibly for some of the games as to do, and those little things can make a slight difference, but then if people take notice, the whole point of it is so people take notice of the actual protest, and then people will join it because they're taking notice. So it's more about getting noticed probably now than anything, and that will create maybe a bigger storm with it, and more people will join it. So that's obviously, if that's what's going to happen. I want change at the club. I want things to change, and if that's under Levy or if it's someone else, I want it to be better. But just because we get someone new, it doesn't automatically mean it will be better. So that's my only point. So I will want something to change in the club 100%, 100%. We can't guarantee that it will definitely be for the better. So that's the only thing.
Just quickly, Dermot, I do find Glazers out versus Levy and Enoch out to be two very different sort of reasons for like getting the, because I find with Glazers out, what I don't really understand with it is that it's a bit similar to Everton, where it's like they have invested money. It's just they've invested it incompetently. And it's like, who are you then blaming? Are you blaming the owners for hiring people that incompetently use the money that they were given? Or are you just, gonna, like, who are you blaming in that scenario? Because, like, yes, the ownership, sure, like, should probably have hired better people, maybe have been more ruthless with the people they had in charge for spending the money, but they did spend the money. Whereas I think with Spurs' case is that we're not only not spending the money, like we don't spend any money, but we've also hired useless directors of football in the past as well. So it was a bit of a double whammy of having Steve Hitchen have no money to work with, but also complain about January transfer windows and waste 80 million on Ndombele and Sanchez and players like that. And so, whereas I think with the Glazers out, I feel like with Man United, it's also slightly different because they have invested a lot of money. They just invested it very incompetently. So now that they've hired a few competent people like Eric Ten Hag and a few other people afterwards, all of a sudden it seems like Glazers out isn't really as strong. And then it does seem sort of like I don't know, like the reasoning behind getting them out was just sort of because Man United wasn't as successful as it used to be. And it wasn't as successful as it used to be due to the incompetency and due to the, poor use of money and the lack of investment in areas and not firing Solskjaer a long time ago and things like that. Like all those sort of decisions were probably the reasons they wanted the Glazers out. But I find maybe the reasons with Enoch and Levy out to be a bit less, how would I put it, I don't care about what Man United fans think. So a bit less princessy than I think what Man United is. Because I think with Man United, they just wanted to return to being Man United again, like the biggest team in world football, the team that's winning everything, that's doing everything again. And it's like, that's all well and good, but that's a very fine margin to reach that sort of level. And they've clearly fallen off of that. But that's where I just find it to be a bit different, as Man United fans are complaining about not being Man United again, whereas Spurs fans are complaining about, I think, a lot deeper issues than that sort of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you. I've got a couple to add to that. David Clark says how the poll's going. Do you want Zanola to come to Spurs? 60% say yes, 40% say no. So I'll keep that poll open. I'll keep that poll open for another sort of 10, 15 minutes. And
Dermot, there's a quote just in from Jose Mourinho about it.
Okay,
it says, in my opinion, Zaniolo, he will still be here on February the 1st. He wants to leave and I accept it, but it doesn't mean he will leave. I too would like to stay in London and have dinner with my family. Instead, I'm here. Typical Jose.
Typical Mourinho. Oh, you got to give it to him, haven't you?
That's so true. Now, when I was putting the show together last night, I got a bit bored at 3 o'clock in the morning and decided to add up all the transfers for the 20 years Spurs that Enoch and Levy have been in. Now, the net loss figure, I've got it as 856. Philip did the maths before, and there's something 700 million. But it's still a loss. So money spent from 0102 to 2122 was 1.574.02 billion. Money brought into the club between the same 20-year period, 857.75 million. Now, if somebody saw this and thought, oh, good, we've spent money, but we haven't spent money. which was the thing we come out with last night on it. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this, Jack, Mia, and Philip as well, and Brad. I'll start with you, Jack. We really haven't. Have we spent money, but have we spent money badly? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. We've spent money very, very poorly. And I think Spurs want to operate like a Brentford or operate like a Brighton, where they try to operate within their means. They try to get players, maybe ahead of the curve, right? Before they become big name players, before they become household names, then they can keep them or sell them on for big money and be able to sort of also reap in a lot of money from the stadium, all those sort of things. I think what makes Spurs maybe more frustrating is they want to operate, like I said, like a Brentford or a Brighton, but they have more means to be able to operate better than Brighton and Brentford. But somehow Brighton and Brentford have figured out how to operate at that sort of model better than we do. Yet we're seemingly trying to operate and, run our club in the same way. Yet we have probably fewer excuses, to not do it as well as they do, in my opinion, at least. And I think with Brentford, they, as well as Brighton, I don't know. It's frustrating that now we're even kind of buying their players off of them, kind of like, what other clubs are. I just think that Spurs' recruitment policies, Spurs' directors of football have all been a very, I would say, misidentified or kind of oversought, or maybe some people have maybe overlooked the directors of football in the past, because while Daniel Levy has not spent a lot of money and while Enoch have not invested a lot of money, you do look at like, had Steve Hitchen invested the money he had available to him, which was well over 300 million that he had invested into the club, or used, money that he had used with a transfer budget. If he had done a lot better with that, we would find ourselves in a less shitty situation that we are in. I'm not saying it wouldn't still be a bad situation. It would still be a bad situation, but we wouldn't have 2 center backs to get. We would have maybe 1 less center back to get. We would have maybe 1 less center mid to, go after, and those sort of decisions. So I think maybe what Spurs have been guilty of is a double whammy of not vesting in enough in the club, not giving the club enough money to spend on the transfer budget, but also keeping incompetent people in charge with those transfer budgets, which are very minimal transfer budgets. So it's kind of like they should have had then their recruitment departments that Brighton and Brentford did. If they wanted their directors of football to operate on a very little amount of money, they should have hired smarter people to use that very small amount of money. But instead, they had very, it seemed like incompetent people using very small amounts of money. And then you're just setting yourself up for a double whammy of disappointment, in my opinion.
Yeah. Philip, do you want to go next on this? What's your thoughts on these figures here?
Yeah, quite surprising. When you think about the talk is we don't spend money. We obviously have spent money, but again, as Jack said, we haven't spent it well in a lot of cases. And I always had this inclination that when Spurs sold players on, we tended to sell them on cheaper than we should have really done. Okay, I know in the likes of Ndombele, we'll be glad to get anything for him, but we're going to take a huge hit there. We're going to take a huge hit on Lo Celso. We'll take a huge hit on Reguilon probably, and Joe Rodon. So they're the recent examples, but there was ones in the past when players left Spurs, they were sent on. Like I think Cameron Carter-Vickers went for about 2 or 3 million. And there he is, a regular in the Celtic team. He's worth more than that. So we just tend to take what's offered rather than fighting for a decent price. Well, I think the figure of 700, I think it's 717 is the net loss over the 20 years, which is what an average of 35 million a year we've lost in transfer dealings. So, I mean, that money could be well spent now. We have 700 something odd million to spend now. I don't think we'd be having this conversation. We'd be down the pub celebrating another Spurs 3 points, if you know where I'm coming from. So it's surprising, but it's I think Daniel Levy would like to see those figures actually, because he might say, "Hang on, you got me all wrong, lads." Regarding the spending, anyway.
I think that it can be misleading because a pound in 2001 is worth a lot less than a pound now.
Oh yeah, it's true.
So it can be a little bit misleading. I actually don't agree with you, Philip, on selling players because I find the problem we have with selling players is we put too much money on them. Like, someone made in the comments that we bid less money for Trossard than we want to get for Doherty. So
you're right. Yeah, but I'm going back. I'm going back maybe in the early 2000s. Not so much recently.
Right, okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's more over the term of the 20 years we've done it.
Fair enough,
or we wait past their sell-by date, right? In the case of Dele Alli, like we could have cashed in on Dele Alli if we wanted to, and we didn't.
So same with Ericsson as well. When we knew he wanted to leave. What I think the problem is at Tottenham with ENIC at Tottenham is the fact that they haven't spent money at the actual time that they had to spend money. The times we've got into a position where, and we can go back to Harry Redknapp in the January window, he wanted Tevez and he wanted Cahill and he got Saha and Nielsen for free. The money. We had Pochettino saying, the famous saying, we need a painful rebuild. And yet they had like 18 months where they didn't give him any money. After we almost won the league, and then they didn't give him any money. Now they can say, "Oh, we'll build the stadium," but to not spend any money, and now we're seeing the same with Mourinho. He wanted to. They apparently, and we all criticise Hitchin, and rightly so in a lot of cases. He had the deal all done for Skriniar, all there, all done, terms all done. Levy wouldn't sign the check, so we miss out on Skriniar. So, and now you've got the same situation with Conte wanting a right wing back and a forward, and yet we're bidding 12 million for Trossard, which is absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah.
And what happens? Arsenal come in, pay the money that Brighton wanted, and they get him. And I saw he came on for a few minutes tonight, and there's 1 minute, and he just dribbled around about 3 or 4 players. And I thought, that could be handy at Spurs. So I think the problem with Tottenham is that they not spent the money when it had to be spent at pivotal times. We had a perfect replacement for Ericsson in Bruno Fernandes. We wouldn't pay that extra bit of money for Bruno Fernandes. We see how important he is to Manchester United. It's these things. We had Mane was ready to sign for us, wouldn't pay his wages. So it's these moments that we've had that opportunity to push Tottenham to the next level of being more than just a top 4 team, a team that challenges the championships or Premiership, which Pochettino had done that moment, and we haven't gone that extra bit of money to build us on. I think that's the main problem with the owners.
Jack Grealish as well. Jack Grealish is another one.
Jack Grealish is another one. Yeah.
Mia, what's your thoughts on these? A lot of different opinions on these figures. What's your thought on them?
I would say that people get really hung up on the money and not the quality. So for me, that's what's important. I'm not really bothered if how much we spend. I just want us to spend on quality and players that the manager wants. So to me, those are the important things. So it's got to be the quality that a manager wants. I think that's probably where people kind of get so into we only spent this much or we spent this much. But the thing is, if it's a player that we look at what we did with Ndombele, we spent the money and he wasn't, and it didn't work out. So that happens obviously with all different players in all different teams. I've got friends from other teams and they tell me the same thing happens to them too. It isn't just an exclusive Tottenham situation. That happens a lot. But because we're not a club that can run like the other clubs can run, that's where our problem lies. Because we spend the money in the wrong places, or with the wrong players, and that's not what we need to do. We need to spend it correctly and with the right players, and that's what's important. I think, like I say, I think people get too caught up with this money thing. Like we have to spend a certain amount, or this amount is more important than another amount. Well, no, because a player's got to be quality, and you can overpay. Look how much Man United overpaid for players because they want a player. They overpay for them. They're not worth that much, but they pay for it. Does that mean they're worth it? No. And if they're rubbish, they paid all that money for them. So that's where you've got to be really careful with the money thing in correlation to the player, because I don't think it always correlates into regards of how good the actual player is.
I think Pochettino wanted I can't remember the guy's name. It might have been an Argentinian centre back, and they more or less said, "No, sorry, can't afford him." And we got Fazio, and we all remember that top quality centre back Fazio, don't we? So
the thing is,
Mia's totally right on that aspect of we don't get what the manager wants. We say, "Sorry, we can't afford that, but we'll give you this." And that's what ENIC have done over all these years. That's the problem.
Jack, from Tyler here, would you bring in John Brooks to add some depth? I've seen Benfica already want to sell him. He would definitely help us pass it out from the back and help aerially and would be cheap.
Tyler, for me, I'd bring in basically any center back to stop the problem right here and now. I think the level of tire, etc., is so low that I'd basically put in anybody. But in all seriousness, no, I think we need to be looking slightly better than that. I'm not even really like talking about Gavardiol and Bastoni and things like that. I genuinely would take a wide variety of players. But I think in the case of John Brooks, I believe he's like 30 years old. Didn't really convince me too much in the Bundesliga. I don't even know if he was called up to the American squad. So I think his sort of days of maybe being a higher level center back might be over. But at the same time, would he walk straight into this team? Probably, considering how bad the center backs are. So no disrespect to John Brooks whatsoever, if in case he's listening.
Yeah. Guys, we've got the game tomorrow. We'll finish up the show now on the game to the. We've got the game on the Fulham away tomorrow. Now we've all gone through our lineups. Most of us have dropped some. So will Conte drop some for the Fulham game? And I'll start with you, Jack, and then I'll go to you, Philip, me, and then you, Brad. Jack, will Conte drop some for the Fulham game?
I'll keep it brief. I think these are kind of the decisions I said in the last game that sort of like you get frustrated with the player first, but then you have to go higher up the ladder and realize who played that player in the first place. And it's Conte. And Conte picked Sonny in the last game when we knew Sonny was sort of out of form. And maybe it seemed right because he always does well against City, but he decided not to take him off the pitch, which he definitely should have done. So he has to take some blame for that. And also in the case of Hugo, like he could have rested Hugo if he wanted to, and he kind of paid the price for Hugo yet again, hurting him with more mistakes and more errors that have led to goals. So I think Sonny as well as Hugo, for me, Dermot, are two players that he's got to leave on the bench, because if he doesn't, yes, they could hurt him again and you'll be frustrated with them, but you have to go further up the ladder and, realize that it's his choice on who he picks at the end of the day. So he's got to leave Sonny out.
Yeah, that's so true. Philip?
Yeah, well, I've more or less nailed me mask. I mean, the colours to Hugo's mask, so I can't drop him. But I do think Son deserves a break tomorrow night. There's obviously something, whatever it is, there's something not right in Sunland at the moment. And we're paying the price for it, effectively going out a man short the way he's been playing the last few games. So, yeah, I would drop him for tomorrow and hopefully bring him on about after 64 minutes and he scores a hat-trick. He's done that before.
That's so very true. Mia, would you drop him?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would drop him. I think that he needs to be taken out the limelight. We need to try something new without Sonny. I think we need to try that and to see what happens. And we can always change it and bring him on. I think that's what people like. The problem with Conte is that he's so rigid, but you can just change it. Like he can just change it back again if he wants to. So those changes are available for him. And I don't know why he doesn't drop him. And if he doesn't drop him, so on his head be it, because we're playing with 10 players if Sonny plays. Yeah.
Can I just make one quick point there? This is nothing to do with Sonny, but something just struck me. With Tottenham Hotspur or Harry Kane is on the verge of a record-breaking goal-scoring thing tomorrow night or any night he plays. It hasn't been mentioned for days. It just shows you how caught up we are in the negativity. The one bit of positive news that we have of happening is got completely lost in the mix.
It's that, Philip, but it's so doom and gloom because there's so many doom and gloom news for them to report on right now.
True. That's it. Yeah. Well, another thing I'd just like to say is the amount of Tottenham fans have come out this evening and said Arsenal are going to win the league. I will never admit Arsenal are going to win the league until they're 6 points up with 7 points ahead with 2 games to go. Then I will reluctantly admit it, but not after 21 games. Come on, lads. We're Spurs fans, not Arsenal fans.
We can never admit that. Never.
I actually spoke to a good mate of mine that I haven't seen for ages because someone nicked his phone and I couldn't contact him. But he's an Arsenal fan, and he's a decent one. He's one of the Arsenal fans that can see, the other side of the thing. He's not biased.
Yeah.
Even he said he still thinks, I don't know, I'm not celebrating just yet, sort of thing. I think if Man City have got to beat Arsenal twice, but probably what will happen is they won't, and then we'll probably go and beat Man City at Tottenham in a few weeks' time. So, but and also on just quickly on the Harry Kane thing, speaking personally from my own point of view, I hope Spurs win our next 2 games that Kane doesn't score, because I want him to break the record at home when I'm there to see it. So,
that's so true. Mia, would you? Oh yeah. So we've done the Son thing. I just wanted. I've ended this.
I don't
poll
think he
now.
will. By the way, I don't think Conte will drop Son tomorrow.
We've ended the poll on the Zanola, and it is. I will tell you now. It's actually surprised me. 60% have said yes, they do want Zanola to come to Spurs. 40% have said no. So 60% of the viewers tonight have said, yes, we want Zanola at Tottenham Hotspur in January. So which really surprised me, because, look, we need a centre-back. We need a right wing-back. We don't need an attacking midfielder.
We do need an attacking midfielder, though. We do, really, to be honest. There's no creativity in the team. There's no creativity. So he'll fit in somewhere, you know?
Yeah, I go for McAllister if we want to go.
McAllister's going to cost 50-60 million. McAllister's price has gone to the roof since the World Cup. You know?
But we've got plenty of money at Tottenham, Philip. We can spend loads of money. We just need to throw the windows and throw the curtains open and just throw the checkbook to Paratici. Here, go and spend a couple of billion. Go on, Barry. You can do it, sir. Yeah. And then Levy woke up with sweats then. Then Levy woke up in his nightmare.
Then we all wake up.
Look, I want to take this like in a more positive direction, right? And I thought long and hard about this question, and I actually sat there and looked at the league table, and I thought, hang on a minute, we're 5th in the league, we're still in the FA Cup, we're in the Champions League last 16. Do you know? Okay, we lost to Nottingham Forest in the League Cup. Okay, we've had loads of bad news over the last 72 hours. But can we still have a successful season? I'll start with you, Philip. You've seen Spurs longer than probably any of us. With your experience and your knowledge of the great club we all support, can we have a successful season? Could we actually go on and win an FA Cup and get to a Champions League, say, semi-final?
Yeah, well, I think the Champions League is probably a bridge too far, to be honest with you. But the FA Cup is definitely there for us. If we get it right, if we get a win against Preston and get a decent draw, because half the Premiership's gone already, almost. And there's 5 lower league teams going to be definitely in round 5. So, you know, we get a good draw. It'd be just a Spursy thing to absolutely lose our manager, probably lose our best player, and win the FA Cup the same season. So, you know, it could well be. It's be the ultimate Spursy thing. But yeah, win the FA Cup, and you have to say that's a decent season, you know. But the league position is to me is pretty relevant as well. You know, we need to get as high up that league. Yeah. It's the top 4 is such competition now for places with Newcastle and Man United joining the party. I know Liverpool and Chelsea aren't doing so well at the minute either, but they will come good, I've no doubt. It's up to us to come good as well.
That's it. I mean, Philip, you follow Spurs for an awful long time. Have you ever known a season like it in all the years you've been following Tottenham?
Yeah, I have actually. The year we got relegated, that was a bad year. You can imagine what social media would have been like in those days if it had been around. Jesus, the place would explode. So yeah, no, that was bad. And in fact, the season afterwards, the one that we got promoted just about, that was very stressful as well, because we were sailing it. We were absolutely sailing it until the last 7 or 8 matches of the season. Then we bottled it. We were losing to teams like not Bristol Rovers. We drew 3-3 with Mansfield, and that point ultimately got us up. You know, things like Mansfield. Exactly. Yeah. I know. And
Jack?
so, you know,
Sorry, Philip. Go on. Sorry, Philip. Sorry.
No, I mean, there have been other bad seasons. Yeah. I mean, and as I said to you earlier, Jack, or to Dermot, there's a picture in one of the Twitter posts tonight of Alfie Kahn scoring a goal against Leeds in 1975 that kept us up and relegated Chelsea. Yeah. What a beautiful thought that is. But the guy said in those days you had a good season if you weren't relegated.
Jack, as I said to Philip earlier, I said between 74 and 77, we were fighting relegation every season. So if social media was around then, Berkshire would have been out the club. Half the players would have been slated, and we'd be in Division 3 now. So who knows?
We had to. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. So, Jack, I'll go with you next, and then you, Brad. Sorry, Jack. Can we have still a successful season? Am I just being delusional here, or am I right to be that we can actually have a successful season if we win the FA Cup and go far in the Champions League?
I think if Antonio were, bold enough and brave enough to put all of his eggs in one basket, he definitely could. Like we saw even just last season, right, with that Frankfurt team, that Oliver Glasner guy. I think that Eintracht Frankfurt team finished 11th or 12th, in the Bundesliga. Like they were one of the worst teams, kind of finishing out the regular domestic season. But then they were putting all their eggs in the basket of the Europa League. Like they were an entirely different team in that sort of competition. Can Spurs go for that sort of kind of style? I feel like we definitely could. I feel like we could be an entirely, a dogged, hard, really annoying, brutal team to come up against in the FA Cup, where we field our best team. No way, whereas other, clubs try to maybe put a player in there that, they can get away with to rest somebody for a bigger game. We'll put in every single big player we can for the FA Cup games, maybe even rest people for some of the Premier League games. And if Conte is brave enough to do that, I would say we absolutely could have a successful season. The problem is, though, is that I think it's still only really halfway. There's still so much ground that you could catch up. So it is still a fine balancing act at the moment. Yeah. I think there's no way you could put all your eggs in one basket yet. I think maybe if it continues to get worse, absolutely go for it. And I think Daniel Levy should do the same, and allow him to do that and not sack him before a final. I don't know. I just think at the moment in time, it's still a fine balancing act. I think you can still push for 5th or 4th quite easily, despite how torrid, the form is, despite how glum and, bleak it looks. You can still push for 5th or 4th, I think, quite easily. So many games left. And also because Spurs actually had, I believe, the most difficult fixture period, or one of the most difficult fixture periods, up until the halfway point. So there's that to also consider.
Yeah, we've got a great run in, haven't we? People seem to forget we have a better run in than most of the teams around us. So I think after Man City, is that the last one we play against the top 4?
I just think, if I'm not mistaken, we played majority of the top 6 teams
already. We got to go to Anfield, but after watching them at Chelsea yesterday, that was.
I think we've already played majority of the top 6 teams.
I think we have. So, Mia, very quickly, and then you, Brad. We will be wrapping up. So, Mia, can we have a successful season? Or am I being a bit delusional here?
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
And if we win the FA Cup, don't we qualify automatically for the Europe anyway? I think it does that give you Europe.
Europa League group stages.
So at least we wouldn't have to worry about being in some European competition. I know we all want Champions League, but if we won the FA Cup, that's killing 2 birds with one stone, right? So we should just put all our eggs in that basket. Why the heck not, eh?
Oh,
yeah, that's true. Brad, can we?
Yeah, well, we can, because mathematically we can, but, I can win the lottery, probably won't. But I think seriously, the position we are in, the results sort of went for us over the weekend. We have to win. If we win tomorrow at Fulham, then, we're in with a chance. Because Newcastle have failed to score in the last 2 games, so they seem to have reached a peak.
Did Bruno Guimaraes also pick up an injury that was serious or something?
Yeah,
he's okay.
It's not beyond the realms and we've got our injured players are coming back now, so we've got a little bit more depth. It's not beyond the realms of possibilities, but we can't rely on this magical turnaround that we had last season and going, and then Man United doing an Arsenal and sort of slipping up. We can't rely on that. But I agree with you, Jack, on the FA Cup. I think, listen. I was in the pub watching, hearing that we're beating Norwich 5-0 to get in the Champions League. And I'm going, yes, that's really, really good. I'm really, really happy. And I'm thinking, if we don't make the Champions League, but I'm at Wembley seeing Tottenham win the FA Cup final, I'm going to be an awful lot happier, let me tell you. So I actually really want to go for the FA Cup this season. Because Philip was saying, a lot of the Premiership teams are out of it. We know that either Man City or Arsenal are going to be out of it. So if we get a decent draw, if we can get past Preston, which again is up for debate, and get a decent draw and just avoid, say, Man City or Arsenal and say the semi-final or the final, where it's just a one-off game. Who knows? And let's face it, our league form was rubbish when we got to the Champions League final. So You never know. You never know. But yeah, it's not over. It's not over. But you know, the pessimist in me says, I know what's going to happen. But then again, you know, glass half full. As I said, the glass is either half full. My glass is half full, but the glass is very small. So there you go.
Yeah, well, I live in a very delusional world where we're going to win the FA Cup, we're going to finish fourth, and we're going to get as far in the Champions League. Everything's happy in my world. So
yeah. Oh, can I just say what Philip said about the Mansfield game?
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, look it up on YouTube. It's on there. It's Mansfield versus Tottenham. I mean, it's 1970,
78.
Yeah,
March or April 78.
The old second
and
division.
The pitch was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, and you see Barry Daines, the Spurs goalie, making a Hugo Lloris type error. It's brilliant. It's really
and
well.
The hairstyles are brilliant on it as well. The hairstyles are just brilliant.
And I actually, we had to beat Leeds to stay up the year before, or the year before, 1975.
Yeah, that's the Alfie Conn goal I mentioned. Yeah,
and Leeds were actually a good team then, a really good team then. And I thought, we ain't going to win that. And I went to school and. You know, a couple of my mates who weren't Spurs fans said, "Oh, Tottenham won 4-2," and I go, "Nah, you're kidding me. Yeah, they beat 4-2." Because obviously it was overnight in Australia, so yeah.
But anyway, just finish off on the Fulham team news. They've got Nibes against Cabio. Jack, is that how you pronounce it?
Cabano.
Sorry,
Cabano. Is that?
Yeah, he's out. Skins must be really old now.
He's out with an Achilles.
50.
Shane Duffy's out with the illness. Of course,
he's had a decent season, I think. Cabano, I believe, for them, where he's put in an okay shift for them. So I've seen.
And cause out for us, it's Lucas Moura with a calf injury.
Or Decadorva Reed, that's who it is. Decadorva Reed, or whatever his name is, has had a good season. But.
The history head-to-head, Fulham have won 18. There's been 30 draws, and there's been 53 Tottenham wins.
That's all right.
If you're a better man, like some of us are, like Brad, or if Shawnee's still watching, here's the latest odds for you, Shawnee. Fulham to win is 11-5, 13-5 to draw, Tottenham to win 11-10. These prices could change with each bookies or each online booking service you have.
Well, considering Man City was 7-1 to win in the second half on Thursday.
And the last question we have, well, we've got to finish it. We've got to finish how we started, and it is, of course, about the Conte rumours. If Conte does leave, who do you want to take over? And also, what's your score prediction for tomorrow night? I'm going to go first. Look, I would like to see the Brentford manager take over. Thomas Frank from Brentford. I think he's a good young manager. He'd be ideal for us with the young players. And what he's done at Brentford has been remarkable. And I think he could do a good job for us. So that's my pick. I'm going for a 2-0 Tottenham win. Harry Kane with a double to break Jimmy Greaves' record. And I will go to Jack next. Jack, if Conte leaves, who would you like to see come over, and what's your score prediction for tomorrow?
I sort of would be tempted to get another manager that would be, capable of testing Levy. And so you do kind of lean towards the Thomas Tuchel sort of rumors, which would be a guy that might be more capable of pushing his buttons, because I don't really want to hire a manager that would make him comfortable. So I might actually go for Thomas Tuchel first, just because he also would be able to take over kind of a squad with a similar shape and everything, and maybe be able to sort of make quick fixes, whereas Pochettino would have to use Eric Dyer in the back four, and that's not going to be pretty, and those sort of decisions. But I don't know. I think you go Pochettino probably at the end of the day, but maybe if you did want somebody to push Levy's buttons, go for Tuchel. But if you didn't want that, just go for a project manager like Pochettino. That's what I would say. And then I might go 3-2 Spurs. I could see this being a bit of a basketball game, actually, in some case too.
Well, apparently to Carl Simpson, David Pleat's going to be manager and Christian Gross is going to be his assistant.
Dream team.
Yeah, David Pleat be able to show Christian Gross where he parked his car when his car kept breaking around on little street corners. But anyway, where he rung the AF on, we'll go on from that. Mia? And guys, can you please put your links into the private chat so I can bring them up at the end, please? Mia, who do you want as Spurs manager if Conte goes? And what's the score going to be tomorrow evening?
I'm with Jack with Tuchel. I think he's probably someone that I would like to see, even though he's turned around and said he doesn't want the job. So that's a bit of a not great for us. And the score, I think it's going to be 2-1 either way. I think either we lose 2-1 or they win 2-1. I'm not very confident.
Okay. All right, Brad.
Well, I think Conte, if he leaves in the summer, I think it'll be for personal reasons. Don't want to go back to his family.
Yeah.
I think Tottenham, if that happens, which seems more and more likely, if that happens, then I think we're going to go back to the chairman's statement about the Tottenham DNA, blah 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 blah. I think you might even see that in Paratici's thing on 1st of February.
Mm-hmm.
The romantic in me would love to see Pochettino back, but I'm not sure if I want him back under these owners. But we obviously, I think, at the moment we've got owners that it's wrong to employ win now managers because they don't back them. Win now managers want backing straight away, but we don't do that. Our DNA is supposedly bringing young players through and blah 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 blah. And so I think the next manager will probably have to be a project manager. And if that happens, we're going to have to be patient. But then again, it worked under Pochettino, so who knows? Who knows? But yeah, the romantic in me would like to see Pochettino back. But, sometimes it doesn't always work when you come back to a club. And also under these current owners who didn't back him last time, why would they back him now? So, it's a sad situation. I don't really want Tuchel. We've got too many Chelsea managers or ex-Chelsea managers. He didn't exactly set the world alight with Chelsea.
No.
Well, I can't think of anyone else. I do like Thomas Frank. I'm not so sure. Look, like Graham Potter is finding out at Chelsea whether Thomas Frank would be suited to a team that of the so-called, glamour club. But could be wrong. Who might I say? No, apart from that, I can't think of anyone else.
Look for me. Look, we all got to be. I mean, I'm Conte in trust until we are told otherwise.
Yeah, I want him to stay. I'd love him to stay and be back. Yeah.
I've got a feeling he may be here next season. I just got this feeling in my waters that he may just surprise us all and just say, right, I want to be here for another year, and then we'll discuss the other contract. Later, but I have a funny feeling he may surprise us all. But Jack, thank you so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure having you on here, and an absolute honour, sir. Please tell us coming up on the Irish Hotspur. And Dave, if you're watching, we send all our love to you, man. Hope you're okay, and we can't wait to see you back on your channel with Jack here, doing what you do best, talking about Spurs. So when are you on next, Jack?
All that game day stuff for tomorrow, everybody. Feel free to come and join me and keep me company for that. So, pre-match build-up and the watch-along and that sort of thing. I was meant to put out a kind of a Paratici response video. I think that's going to come out when I release it. Probably might be Tuesday, could be tomorrow. But decide to maybe just kind of dwell on it and think about it a bit more because my man is behind bars, so I have to come up with a good defense for him. So,
yeah.
How it goes. Yeah,
that's so true. But everyone, please get over to Dave's and Jack's channel, the Irish Hotspur, and also get over to Flat Cap Euro Talk as well. Hit a like on there because Jack does put some great stuff in there. But Dave and Jack, the Irish Hotspur, is the spiritual home of this channel. It's the mothership of here. We sprang from there, so thank you for coming on, Jack. Really enjoyed your company. Thank you.
It was very speedy, tight ship you have run over here, Dermot. It was very good, very well done.
I tried to. Sometimes it's not, but because royalties tonight, I had to look good tonight. But normally it isn't. Believe me, it's sort of runs. It runs everywhere. Who am I doing next? I am going to bring up Brad, the Blue Sofa song. So what have you got coming up? And thank you for coming on again. It's always a joy to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Hello. Why am I completely up here by myself? Who's playing around with the screens behind?
Yeah, I've got hopefully a new song coming out this Friday. Well, I've still got to write some lyrics for it. But that's what I do. I have no idea what I'm doing until the last couple of days and it all comes together. Or doesn't, depending on your view. The latest song is on there, 2023, about my New Year's sort of hopes and dreams and that. That actually is the fastest viewed song I've had on there, which I'm quite proud of. So, yeah, please click like and subscribe. I'm just doing my best to make art, if you like. Something different from football. I try and keep football well out of it. Well, I do keep football well out of it. But yeah, it's please click like and subscribe. Have a look at it. See what you think. Share it. Notification bell. All the usual sort of stuff. send me money. No, I'm not monetized, so you can't do that. But thanks for letting me have the opportunity.
He does accept PayPal. He accepts bank transfer.
PayPal address.
If you pay me enough, we might twerk for you.
And also, click like and subscribe to these guys as well. They're all their channels. Because we're all, as I said the other night, we're all a community. We all get on. Most of us all get on really, really well with each other, and we all have to, especially in today's day and age, have to support each other. So,
that's true. And lastly, but not least, Mia, absolute joy to have you on again. Thank you so much. What you got coming on your channel, and what have you got coming up?
Well, I'll be doing the after the game. I'll obviously be doing my review of it, whether good, bad, or ugly. I'll be there giving my point of view of the game. I do regular posting of what happens in games, previews to games, and I will be doing a live at some point. I haven't quite decided yet, but I will be doing another live, and I'm on my road to 200, so I'm on 138 at the moment. So if everyone could give me a subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. Like the videos, watch them, give them a share, and like Brad said, put the notification bell as well, so you know what I've got coming up as well. So I'd really appreciate all the support that everyone's given me so far, and especially you guys, because all of you have been so supportive. Like, I know Dermot has been really supportive, Philip coming in my live the other day as well, Jack came on with me, so I really do appreciate all that support, especially starting the channel new. It's really hard. It's not easy.
Yeah, we've all been there, Mia. It is very hard. But look, I want to thank Philip, Ellie in the background, who's my usual co-host, Philip as well. We've got things coming up this week. We've got the watch along tomorrow. We'll have a debate during the week with Philip dangling his feet in the pool somewhere, showing off the lovely sunshine.
On holiday again. He's always on holiday.
Yeah, he's got a new job now. He's the Foreign Affairs Minister for Ireland. He's sorting out the countries for 4 Taoiseachs to go and have to go and live in. So that's Philip's job. So that's Philip's new job. He does this as a sideline. But we've got Philip, we've got Ellie, us three back this week with different types of shows. We've got debates, we've got the watch-alongs. But I want to say thank you to last night. Last night was our quickest ever viewing of any show we've had on the channel, apart from the stars coming on. Last time I checked, we were nearly at 1,000 in less than 24 hours. I want to thank everyone who viewed it, who's liked it, who's helped us get to where we are. The likes of Jack, Dave Harris, Steve Butler, Brad's been on here a few times. Me, especially, I want to thank Philip and Ellie, who put a lot of work in with me onto this channel. I couldn't do it without you two guys. I really appreciate you guys so much. And everyone who's helped, like Jack and Brad and Mia as well. Mia's part of this channel as well. Jack and Dave have been here with me since the start. I can't thank you two enough. And just thanks to everyone who's helped us. And we're on the march for 2,000, and we're going to get there before the end of the year. So that's our road to 2K starts now. Philip, do you want to say anything before we head off?
No. I don't think I'll be around for the watch along tomorrow night because there's nowhere really private enough to do it. You saw the big screen I'll be watching it at. Sent you a picture. They've actually put a projector, and the screen must be 40 foot long. It's on the side of a wall, and they were showing Atletico Madrid playing tonight on it, so that'll be great, provided it doesn't rain. So that's me for tomorrow night. So I'll see you during the week at some stage.
Yeah, well, look, if you can come on, dude, we're not unbeaten. We lost our unbeaten record the other night, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I'll be here. I think Ellie's going to come on with me to the watch along tomorrow night. So we're back there, and then we're back on Tuesday or Wednesday or Tuesday with the pre-match. So listen, everyone, hit a like and subscribe. Everyone get over to Mia's channel, Brad's channel, Jack's channel as well, the Irish Hotspur. Dave, if you're watching, come back soon, so we do miss you.
Yes.
And everyone, please enjoy your Sunday evening. It's 10 to 11. Go to bed dreaming of Spurs lifting a trophy. Forget Conte out. Forget the Paratici trouble. Just dream of a Spurs captain walking up Wembley Way steps, picking up a trophy. And who knows, we may get there. In Conte, I trust. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, Spurs.
I forgot to do one thing. I've got to do this for Ellie. I wanted to do it for This is for you, Ellie. There you go. I want to get that fella that turns around and just does that with his head. I want to get him on the channel. If you're watching, I want you on. Anyway,
Hoiberg territory, that is where she was. That was Hoiberg territory.
Hoiberg territory. Listen, thank you all very much for watching. God bless you all. Take care. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.